Skateboarding at its core is very simple. All you need is a piece of wood with some metal and some wheels to be able to have fun for hours. And it's crazy to think about how much it has evolved throughout its existence. The very first people to step foot on a skateboard are still alive today, and you can't say that about a lot of things. But skateboarding is a lot more than just a piece of wood with some wheels that you can ride and have fun on. For some people, skateboarding is a competitive sport, and they dedicate their entire lives to it. And for others, it's a form of expression, a form of art. There have been dozens of different styles and forms of skateboarding throughout time. But the one that stuck the most, and the one that gives you the greatest ability of creative freedom, is street skateboarding. You're not limited to a vert ramp or a flat, smooth surface. The streets of the city is your playground, and your skateboard is all you need to be able to experience it. But street skating as we know it wouldn't be anywhere close to possible without the inventor of it himself, Rodney Mullen. So in today's video, I'll be telling you the story of the life of Rodney Mullen. Born in Gainesville, Florida, Rodney Mullen first stepped foot on the skateboard at the age of 10 years old, after his friend introduced him to the sport. However, shortly after this, Rodney encountered his first obstacle when his father first found out about it. In the interview with the New Yorker, he said, "My dad wouldn't let me have a skateboard. He thought I'd get hurt and I would never become good. And the culture was full of bums, and he thought that I would become one of them." His father was a dentist and had also served in the military, and there were times that you'd call him sir. On New Year's Day, he had a drink and felt better, and the skate shop was open, resulting in him buying Rodney Mullen his first skateboard. Rodney began practicing in his garage while wearing lots of pads, which was due to a deal he made with his father. But this practice soon started to turn into an obsession with skateboarding, as he began repeating the same tricks for many hours on a daily basis. And although I don't think there's an official diagnosis for it that I could find, it does seem obvious to him and the public that he has a form of mild autism.
Teachers would reach out, troubled kid. Is he autistic? Or I don't know. I could never speak. I went through huge parts of my life not even speaking. I spoke in whispers. It's weird. Everyone did in the house, mostly.
And it could be that his obsession and repetition of tricks stems from that. Normally, autism is looked at as an obstacle in life, but it seems that Rodney mastered it and has used it to his advantage. But more on that later. Another obstacle that Rodney Mullen faced early in his career was his pigeon toe condition, which if you don't know what that is, makes skateboarding pretty difficult. Every night he went to bed wearing a boot aimed at correcting his disability. But this didn't stop him though. As Phil Kayokio, a former owner of the skate park Sensation Basin, said, he had incredible dexterity with his feet, and he wasn't kidding. Just look at what he could do despite his disability. After her first year of skateboarding, at the age of 11, Rodney got sponsored by a local skate shop called Walker Skateboarding. It was also in this same year that he began attending and also competing in skate competitions, winning the first competition he entered in 1977 at only 11 years old. One thing Rodney strongly disliked though were the crowds.
Hard to emphasize this enough that I was not used to people. Probably spoke most of the dog.
Here you are on camera right here.
Yeah.
I didn't get to catch your freestyle. What place did you get?
I was tied for third with that little GNS guy.
Alright.
Skateboarding is something that I know.
At the end of the year, his family packed up and moved out to a farm just outside Gainesville, Florida. While he appreciated being away from the big crowds for the moment, he used the rural landscape to perfect his flat ground tricks, also known as freestyle. By 1980, he entered his first professional skateboarding competition, which he won by a landslide. Although he partially attributes his win to him having little kid points compared to the other competitors, it was pretty clear that he just rode at a level of precision that others, including Steve Rocco, just couldn't match. Just as his career began taking off, it nearly ended once again because of his father. If he wanted to skate at the new Aces contest, he would have to give up skateboarding once he returned back home.
And then the magazines called and the companies are calling, and then my dad was like, well look, I guess they're putting money into you, and so I have no choice, but just know that this is very temporary. And that has echoed in my ears more than anything. This is very temporary. Take it as your last chance.
After Rodney's success at the Oasis contest, he turned pro for Bones Brigade and was featured in videos 1 through 4. Through all this, he was still practicing in isolation on flat ground outside of his family farmhouse. And although he had a handful of tricks that he invented that other pros tried to replicate, there was nothing that stuck better than his invention of the ollie. Funny enough, he says that he wanted to make it work just so he could start jumping onto curbs.
It seemed like it was a good way to get up curbs.
But little did he know that his ollie that he invented would become the trick that was required to do for just about any trick while street skating. 1986 was the next big turning point in his career, when he started having giant crowds of fans coming out to watch him skate while he was on tour.
Tonight he's here on our stage to demonstrate some of his truly incredible skateboarding skills.
So please welcome skateboarder extraordinaire Rodney Mullen.
While he was on tour, his old competitor Steve Rocco reached out to him after starting his business, Road Industries. Part of the deal was that Rodney was going to have to buy out Steve's partner, John Lucero, for $6,000. Shortly after, Rodney had to quit because his previous partnership with the creator of Bones Brigade didn't like that Rodney was having other deals with skate companies. It was by this point that freestyle had begun to lose its popularity among the public, and naturally, Rodney's teammates started to try to get him to adopt to street skating, but he was not a fan of it.
I figured that was it for me in my public life and skating.
At this point, he thought his career was over. I mean, imagine pioneering and building a whole type of skating and being the most prominent skater in the category, and then losing everything from sponsors to pro boards and his entire form of income.
And suddenly it was over for me. That's it. It was gone. They took my pro model off the shelf, which was essentially pronouncing you dead publicly. That's how you make your money. You know, you have a signature board and wheels and shoes and clothes. I had all that stuff, and it's gone. The crazy thing was, there was a really liberating sense about it because I no longer had to protect my record as a champion. What drew me to skateboarding, the freedom, was now restored, where I could just create things because that's where the joy was for me.
By 1990, Rodney's board became discontinued as freestyle had completely fallen off the face of the planet. During this time, he was in college, and he was actually forced to drop out because of the pressure he faced from his company.
I went through this horrible period of being a company guy, which I never wanted to be, and being like a team manager guy, which I never wanted to be.
After I got numb.
This time in his life was probably the greatest struggle he had to face yet. He never liked the corporate life or managing a team, and he was forced to do both. And on top of that, he had to give up his dream of skateboarding as a career, and also had to say goodbye to a type of skating that he loved and pioneered. Things were looking down for Rodney Mullen. After a while of struggling, a new company was formed by Mike Tranowski called Plan B, and they all wanted to add Rodney Mullen's talent to the team. But the only issue they had was they had to convince Rodney Mullen to transition from freestyle skating to street skating. Mike was the only one who was able to convince Rodney to want to progress with street skating. And shortly after he got back on his board, Rodney's career began looking up for the first time in a while. Interestingly enough, Rodney cites that the hardest part of the transition wasn't even that he didn't like street skating, but that it was difficult to change what you're looking at while you're doing tricks. He said that with freestyle you're supposed to look down, which is not the case with street. He claims that it took months for him to get used to that. Rodney's first tape of Plan B came out in 1993, titled Virtual Reality, where he is first seen taking on the new challenges that street skating presented to him. Unfortunately, just 3 years after forming the company, Mike Tranowski died in a car accident, leaving Rodney feeling sad and a bit lost.
He was such a great person. He'd lift you so high, and that's why Plan B was what it was. And it was clear once Mike was gone, it just was never the same.
Without the leadership of Mike, Plan B began to fall apart over the next 4 years. In 1997, Rodney formed his own company called A-Team with his teammate Daewon Sung. Together they created a compilation series called Rodney Mullen vs. Daewon Sung. Talk spread throughout the skateboarding community about who won and who did it what better. But the cool part is that it did well enough for them to be able to make a second part called Round 2, Rodney Mullen vs. Daewon Sung. They would go back and forth individually filming their parts, and by the weekend they would show what they had done. And as the years continued going by, it became more than apparent that Rodney had more than just adjusted to street skating. He was now fluent and becoming ahead of his time. One of the best examples of this was his trick called the Dark Slide. After A-Team came to a collapse in 2000, Rodney transitioned from a company founder to company rider, and former Maple rider Mark Johnson formed Enjoy Skateboards. During this time, Mullen began the development of his own skateboard truck design, which would later become the foundation for the company Tensor. He filed a US patent in support of his innovative work in truck design. After receiving the patent, they released an advertisement titled The Patent in Tensor Design, and with it came the newest recruitment of riders such as Daewon Sung, Chris Cole, Chris Haslam, Ryan Sheckler, and a few others. He ended up leaving Enjoy and co-founded another company called Almost Skateboards with Sung. Steve Rocco decided to sell Road Industries, and Rodney Mullen was still a partner with them, so he got paid a giant $46 million check. It was literally overnight that Rodney Mullen became incredibly wealthy. Later on in life, he would end up writing an autobiography titled The Mutt, How to Skateboard and Not Kill Yourself. He was also later featured in Tony Hawk's video game series, Tony Hawk Pro Skater. Rodney Mullen is an ideal example of what can happen if you just follow your passion and don't worry about anything else. After all, Rodney was made fun of for years for skateboarding until it became one of the people that completely revolutionized it. He never intended to be the godfather to skating, as he's known as today. He was just obsessed with skateboarding, and that led him on the path of discovering things that would have been thought to be witchcraft a few hundred years ago. And not to mention, he invented some of the most common tricks that people do in their skateboards, from the most basic ollie to kick flips, heel flips, tray flips, the impossible, and the list keeps going. Rodney is equivalent to the skateboarding version of Steve Jobs or Pablo Picasso, and he revolutionized skateboarding because of it. So if there's any lesson from all of this, or a page you can take from his book and keep in your heart forever, it's to become obsessed with what you enjoy doing and just focus on doing that. Forget about the acceptance from other people and just do the things that make you happy. Thank you guys for watching this entire video all the way through. I'm really glad you enjoyed it, and if you want to help the channel out, please make sure to hit the like button, and also let me know who you want me to make a video like this one on next. And also don't forget to subscribe if you're new, because I upload twice a week, and if you're still watching this video, you probably want to see more. Anyway, that's all I have today. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you again soon.